And now, it's time for TJwow.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Training Journal webinar. We are so pleased that you are with us today and I'm really looking forward to today. Karen, you're saying the sound has gone off. Hopefully not. Can you all hear? I wonder if you can. Do let us know in the chat window if it's just Karen that is having a problem. So you probably know me already and I'm the Deputy Editor of Training Journal. My name's Jo and I am your host today. I'm very much looking forward to discussing things with you. And we like to think our approach to this discussion webinar, it's not just a normal webinar we get bored to death by PowerPoint presentation. What we're doing here is we're taking a leaf out of Jay Cross's way and approach of doing things, and that is that conversation is absolutely the most powerful learning technology. And we feel like, if you go to a session, you go to a conference, the best bit is usually that actually, you're having a coffee and a chat with somebody, maybe you go to the pub afterwards. That's what we want here. It's all about you and the conversation, which is absolutely imperative for our learning. So you can use that chat window if you want to, any time to ask a question, to make a comment, get that discussion going. Also, at the bottom of the screen, what you should be able to see is that you have got a question pod as well. So what you can do is put a question in there anytime you want to make sure we absolutely see it. I promise I'll see it, and I'll promise I'll get round to it as best I can. But you can always pop it in there if you want to. And if you're thinking, I've got a microphone, I'd like to speak, what you can do is make sure that you put your hand up and we try that out. We haven't tested it before the session, but you can always give it a go. So as I said, we've got John doing all the information on Twitter. So if you want to go and share your thoughts as you're going along or afterwards, you are more than welcome to do so. And also, as I said, everything is being recorded and is available on our website, so you can go and have a look at that any time. So what we are doing now is we're going to have a look at who our speakers are today. So we have three wonderful speakers, really looking forward to having a chat with them. We have Emily, Cath and Neil, and you know what, rather than me doing it, I'm going to get them to do their own introduction. So let's bring on our webcam. Here we go, so you'll be able to see everybody. Let me make that nice and big on the screen. Here we go. And let's hear, first of all, we'll go from Emily, then Neil,
good morning,
then
everybody.
Cath.
Lovely to be here and to be joining the webinar. So my name's Emily Cosgrove and I am co-founder of the Conversation Space, and it was wonderful to see the quote that you had up there. Conversation is the most powerful learning technology ever invented, because absolutely that is our philosophy at the Conversation Space. We believe that if you can change the conversation, you can change the culture, you can change business efficiency, effectiveness, you can change engagement, you can change whatever it is that your business challenge is. So it was great to see it there. Thank you. We are a small consultancy, but we work with lots of big organisations across the world, and we support organisations, we support leaders, we support teams, and we do that through mentoring programs, through conversational programs such as Courageous Conversations and Career Conversations, and more recently we have been doing that through reverse mentoring programs as well. So that's a little bit about the Conversation Space and myself. My background is in mentoring. I've been working in that world for 20 years. And I'm really excited to be here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We're excited.
It is a bit of a threatening robot,
well,
yes. Good question, John.
Neil,
this is our resident
John, our editor, has said, I want
robot,
to know about
and
the
he represents
robot behind Neil.
robotic
Neil,
business writing,
robot?
which is what we're here to get rid of in the world. Our mission is to banish blah, bull and bunkum from business writing, and we do that through copywriting, but mainly through training. And a big part of our philosophy is that good business writing is like a good conversation. So few of us think of it like that. We think business writing has to be really formal. And so what I want to talk to people today about is the writing skills that you need to put together a good training session, so good slides, and to make it feel interesting and fun and not formal and robotic like this guy behind me today. So, yeah, that's me and that's the robot. Does that answer your question, John? I'm guessing yes. He said yes.
I was sure it does, and he says, yes,
Yeah.
excellent, thank you. Excellent.
Exactly.
And I think that's
Yeah.
a really nice point of view. I mean, especially from, from Training Journal, we have to agree with you there, because it's all about getting personality and engagement and
Hi everyone. That was quite a challenging moment when we started today because our dustman has just arrived outside the building, so there's a huge amount of noise. My name's Cath Convery. I work for a small learning and development company who have been working in public and private sector for the last 13 years, designing and delivering training, some specialist training, but an awful lot of business training. And we deliver training through a vast variety of different mediums, from virtual learning environments to webinars to face-to-face training. I have been running the business now for the last 13 years. I think I've learned some things along the way. I also think I have forgotten a whole host of things that I should do, as all of us probably do at some stage within our careers. I have, however, been working in L&D for nearly 30 years now, which ages me an awful lot. So I've seen the way that other organisations actually work on as well, and some of those skills, knowledge, and indeed the attitudinal pieces that you need to run a business in learning and development. I think I've got a reasonable pulse on. But it's great to be with you. As I said, the company's name is Cosgrove Learning Solutions. You can also find us under ELS Business Training because we trade on the business. I'm looking forward to the chat.
Thank you very much, Cath. And I think it's some really interesting backgrounds we've got from everybody in different angles to focus on. So our question today is, what business skills does the savvy L&D professional need? Now, you're all here, so you're savvy L&D professionals, which is excellent. So let's go round in that same order again, Emily, Neil and Cath. And find out a little bit about what your headline thoughts are. And guys, you've got the chat window as well, so you can answer that question. You can share your thoughts.
The biggest headline for me is tenacity, enthusiasm, drive, and an understanding of the customer. All four elements, and three of them are completely attitudinal, are skills that you need in this business. The last few years have been tough for most people in L&D because of the crunch that we've been going through. And making sure that you can keep with business drivers are the key parts of keeping a successful business.
So for me, the thing that makes the biggest difference, I believe, is growing our conversational wisdom. And what I mean by that is that we are able to be, in our conversations, more human, more skilled, and more aware. And I think that, and I know that through our own research and through other research, we are all craving more human connection at work. And I also believe that we are all needing to step up and be bolder and to be more challenging. So I think being able to challenge skillfully and effectively, being able to be more human. I know that the word authenticity has been overused somewhat, but for me and for us at the conversation space, that's something that's really important, being able to be human in our conversations. And when I say that, that means being focused on building relationships, being willing to be vulnerable in our conversations, and being more curious as well. So being willing to step out of being an expert and actually be more curious and ask more questions. They're the headlines for me.
Sounds great. I think there's lots in there about communications, about relationship building, which are really interesting in there, as well as,
Yeah, actually, as Emily was talking there, I did just write down the words human connection, because I think that's really important. And I think that, for me, the headline would be, it's think about your delegates as your customers, not as people to be trained, as Emily said, by an expert who knows everything to delegates who know nothing. Is to think about them as customers, and to make your training as interesting and engaging as possible, and not fall into some of the kind of cliched language around training. So, and that starts from the headline that you give your training, the title, so it's not just focused on the business, which is where it becomes quite robotic, quite formal, quite official sounding, and to focus on the people that you're training, and really think about it like, if I was selling this as a product to them, what would I call it? How would I make them interested? How would I engage them? And I guess from our perspective, a lot of that comes through in the language that you use. It always gives you away. It gives your objectives away. If your objectives are to satisfy the business and to tick L&D boxes, then that's how it will come across. But if you've got your, the people you're training in mind, that will come across in much more human language. And we always say here, we do lots of training, but would we read our clients' briefs carefully. We want to meet all of their objectives, but one of the most powerful things for us is, would we want to go onto this training course? If our manager, if we worked at one of our corporate clients, said, you're going to go on this course, would we be excited by it? And that's such a good yardstick, really, for the way that we think about and the way that we design our training. So it's not just from a client point of view or business point of view, it's from our trainees' point of view, and we think of those as customers. So think of your delegates as customers. That's the headline for me. Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. And in the chat window, I just asked,
Yeah.
are they learners? Are they clients? Are they customers? And some are saying one, some are saying kind of something different. Shona makes a great point, and she says, I'm also a learner, and I learn as much from my customers as they learn from me, which is really important. And again, we're hearing here about relationships, about two-way communication, as well as the kind of the consultancy and the design part that we have to do in our L&D role. And also what I'm hearing in here is...
Yeah, I mean, it would be lovely to think that we can design the most brilliant learning intervention that anybody has ever seen, and they'll all flock to see us, and that would be a great position to be in. I think if you can't market it and you can't sell it, then it can be absolutely fabulous, but nobody's going to come and see how fabulous it is. So yes, absolutely, you need these business skills. And I think for me, some of this is more than just bringing in marketing specialists, bringing in salespeople. It's also making sure that you're living your brand, that you're living your enthusiasm. So when I'm asked to speak at conferences, if I can't stand up and deliver in front of 300, then how are they going to ask me to deliver when I'm only delivering for 20? If I can't be enthusiastic on the end of a telephone or indeed in a webinar, why would anybody think I was going to be enthusiastic in a classroom? So that living the brand is so important in this marketing and indeed in sales pitch. That can be really exhausting because learning is all about being upbeat and positive. Sales is exactly the same. And for me, actually, and the person we're looking to employ next, bizarrely, is somebody that can deal with content development, because content development that's produced well is as useful within sales and indeed marketing as it is in content creation for a learning event. And that is a really difficult, hard thing to put across to people who think of themselves as simply being marketing specialists. For L&D, we have to know this. I think it's a part of our DNA, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Cath. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. And Sharon in the chat window is saying, yeah, it's absolutely about learning all the time and being more like marketeers. And Sharon goes on to say, talking about training all the time doesn't help us. Training, I know I'm preaching to the converted when I say training is just part of development, and that goes along with
I'm
the
going to
sales
bring back
and marketing
the word human,
and all
because
of the other
the first thing I thought of when we were talking about sales is
Emily,
Dan
what are
Pink's
your
book, To
thoughts
Sell is
on this
Human.
point around
And for me, it all comes back to our ability to connect in a human way with whether we call them clients or customers, whether they're our learners, whether it's the business internally, whoever it may be. I think that to be able to market whatever it is and to sell it, we have to be able to communicate that really clearly. We have to be able to engage people and excite them about what it's about. And I think we have to, for me, the word training I find challenging. I feel as though the more that we can be facilitators of the conversation about whatever it is we're hoping to focus on, and the more that I read a wonderful article recently talking about the need for us to be Sherpas. We have to help guide people to do their own learning, and of course there's knowledge that needs to be shared and for people to take that on. But I think that, and especially in terms of sales and marketing, sometimes that can get a bad press. But I think if we come back to thinking about that as a way and as a vehicle to be able to connect people in a more engaging way with the content, then I think that really helps us.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think it's such a fundamental part of those skills to have. And again, it goes back to relationships and communication. I always remember I've had a couple of sales jobs in the past. I wasn't great at them, I'll be honest. But I always thought, well, I'm not a salesperson. But once I realised, like you say, it's just about communication and connections and relationships, that's when I found a way that it did work. And, we're all salespeople, and maybe that's a topic for another webinar. Let's come back to Neil. Neil, you kind of started this about marketing and
well,
sales.
Emily just mentioned engaging
content, and
to
share with us. So
this is a prime example of how not to do it, I think, in my opinion. So at some point in your learning and development career, you're going to need to put together training materials of one kind or another, and this is a kind of classic how not to write a slide. And the interesting thing about this for me is we've been talking about making a human connection and having a conversation. No one speaks like this. We write slides like this, but no one speaks like this. Or maybe some people do. Maybe they're too far gone. I don't know. But there's something that gets lost when we put together training materials, that human connection, that desire to interest people. To give you a bit of context about this slide that I'm showing you now, I went on a webinar recently. It was an hour long like this one, and there were 47 of these slides. And it was just really, really dull. And so we've all seen it. We've all probably been guilty of it. And I mean, I'm just going to run through it that we can see what's wrong with this slide. And this is why I'd say that writing is such a key skill for learning and development professionals. So it's grey, first of all. It's got way too much text on it. It's got jargon in there. It's got this odd use of capitalization and then non-capitalization. It's got on the fourth point there, it says Y in inverted commas. I don't know why the Y is in inverted commas. There's a really long sentence on the second from last point, which you'd struggle to say, never mind read. So I don't know why, but this is really common in learning and development, and in training sessions. You see these kinds of slides all the time, and I think they're indicative of a very businessy approach to training, which is, I have the information, I'm going to throw it at you, and we're not going to have a conversation where you're going to just maybe make notes. I mean, I don't know, I didn't really know what to take from this slide or the 46 other ones. And so what's refreshing about this format, for example, is that we're not, I understand the irony that of showing you a slide, to make the point that we shouldn't use slides, but I'm not showing you 47 of them. But, you know, I like this format because we're having a conversation, and I think getting more out of it, there's more freedom, we can talk around it, it's not just one way. And I think this happens when people sit down and think, right, I've got to produce some training materials, I need to get everything down. Broadcast, yeah, it's like one of the ways you fail an exam is, here's everything I know, rather than sort of answering the question or thinking about. Yeah, so this I think shows me why writing is so important. You might have great ideas, you might have great things to share with people, but this is not the way to do it. And in fact, we start here wherever we can with not using PowerPoint if we can. Sometimes you need to share things, but that's a good, you know, less is more. You know, if you start off with this idea that you don't have to have a prop, you know, a prompt, if you can have topics and have a conversation and talk about it and guide that conversation and give people tools and tips, but rather than just sort of presenting in this very old-fashioned and, you know, kind of formal and ineffective way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that slide, I just, you know, I feel like my heart sinks.
Sharon makes a great point in the chat. She said often slides like that are produced when people don't have time to think. It happens all the time, and what we now do in any of our workshops and any of our programs is we go for as few slides as possible. Tomorrow I'm working with a group launching a mentoring program. I think we've got 5 slides. I think 3 of them are just pictures. So there is something about, and I think this extends from just workshops to any kind of, back to the main question, what business skills does the savvy L&D professional need? I think it's about starting a conversation with a prompt, and maybe that's, you know, maybe it's a brief, maybe it's a picture, maybe it's something else, and then making the most of the conversation with the person or with the people, and then following up. I know someone put this in the chat window, following up with the information that's written. So whether that's in a handbook, whether that's in a PDF of slides, whatever it is, I think that's great. And it's the same for technology. You know, we can build relationships, we can have great conversations in person, and technology helps to maintain that, but it's never going to start it on its own, just as slides aren't going to start it on their own either. So I think when we think about L&D professionals, whether we're selling, whether we're marketing, whether we're delivering, I think that the more that we can bring what we're talking about to life through conversation, the better the engagement is going to be, the better the end result as well. And also it helps us to connect with the people who we're serving and who are important to us. You know, it gives us the opportunity to find out what's important to them and to have a conversation rather than it just being one way. So I think it's really important what you said there, Neil.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because what we're talking about here, Neil has focused a bit more on writing, Emily's focused a bit more on conversation, but the fundamental points are the same here about having that discussion and that two-way interaction. Just like we're doing here, we're using the chat window, it's informing what we're saying. And both of those, I think, really draw into around the content. Now, Cath mentioned kind of content earlier on and how important that is for marketing, and there's a whole area of content marketing.
So one of the people that I seem to frequently commend or recommend when I'm talking to any learner or indeed client when I'm working on a consultancy piece of work is to read into Cotter. John Cotter, the man that wrote all about penguins and more recently meerkats, brings forward this concept that the content is critical and communicate more. He says communicate 9 times and then communicate a little bit more because then they might hear you. And these days you've got to hit that on so many different levels. Again, I'll repeat, you can build the best training intervention, you can build the best organizational development piece, but if they don't hear about it, then nobody's going to come and you won't have a successful learning and development company or a training company. So for me, marketing is we have a marketing strategy. This is a big part of where we need to be in the business for the next 10 years. We are looking to routinely put out webinars. We are looking to routinely put out tweets. We work on LinkedIn. We work on Facebook. We hit our targets. Neil mentioned earlier, even in the slides, everybody instantly criticised some really great points at the very end of the slide, which is all about the data and the analytics. But really sadly, although I am a people person in that I'm a trainer, and I think most trainers are people, I also think that the numbers are important. So we look routinely at the data behind all of our social media platforms to see what time is working, what time isn't working. Exactly the same for our webinars. We're working at the moment with the National Health Service. And part of that is a blended solution, which includes the webinar. And our first analysis is to look to see what time our learners are coming on board, see whether we should have a webinar at a different time of day. Actually, most of them are coming on board in the evening. That then leads to we need to target our marketing in the evening. But it's not just the social media piece. Everybody's emphasised social media. We've made sure that we've got social media outlets. But there's still space for a good old-fashioned web page and thinking whatever you're saying, your core values on in training and your core values on your social media, second to your web page is critical. And there's blogs, there's journals, there's articles, making sure you've got press releases. I guess one of the biggest challenges with all this is that you then start saying, but what's the return on investment? Because marketing is one step away from sales. It's not the same type of activity. You might be doing quite a bit of marketing, but it's just simply raising brand awareness. We're a training company that works all over the world. We're based in Oxfordshire. I always alarmed when I walk outside my office and there are some people who have not heard of us, even though they live in the block next to us. We spend a lot of time at networking events making sure that we're pressing the flesh, making sure that we're branded, making sure that people know that we're explosive learning solutions. These are skills that you've got to have. They're business skills that you've got to have and can't shy away from. And quite a few people are brilliant at presenting. They're fabulous at making the conversation, but they're just uncomfortable with this sales pitch. And actually, the elevator pitch, sales pitch is critical to making sure that you have a successful L&D business.
So such great points in there, Cath. I think, you've picked out social media, you've picked out data analysis, you've picked out, pure sales, as well as kind of communication and presentation skills that we've kind of touched on a little bit. Sharon highlights in the chat window, the key skills for me, get to know the business context. And that's a really important one. And I think with all of the things that we've just talked about and that Cath has just talked about as well, Sharon actually has put a question. Sharon, you're on fire today. Has put a question in our Q&A pod, and she asks, how would you recommend
I agree with Sharon. I think absolutely we have to know what the business needs to help them
maximise
so understanding wherever it is within an organisation that people require our support
Emily,
and our
let's
help.
come to you first.
So getting to know those different
what are your
areas
thoughts about how we can actually go
critical, and the skill of being curious and being willing to step into discomfort as well, I would say. So into areas where we feel maybe we don't know enough, or having to learn from people within the business and different parts of the business, I believe is critical. And how do we acquire curiosity? Well, we're born with it. I think we tend to lose it, having gone through school and university and lots of institutions where we're told and where we sit and listen, where we look at slides. So I think one of the key business skills is curiosity, and I think that we have to practice it every day. We have to get better at asking great questions. We have to get better at listening really well. I think we can practice that internally within organisations. Just as Cath was saying, going out and networking, I think we have to practice it there. We have to get better when we're out there, rather than just pushing ourselves at finding out about what's interesting, what's important for the other people in the network. I would say one of the other things that I think we need to do to acquire the skills as L&D professionals is to keep our own saw sharp. So we need to be going to CPD, we need to be stretching ourselves, learning about new things. You know, there are lots of events going on in the training journal, joining webinars like this for ourselves as participants. I think that's absolutely critical. For myself and my co-founder, one of the things that we do to keep our skills sharp and to acquire more skills is we have our own supervision with our own coach. We do that regularly. We bring challenges. We go out and we ask the clients that we're working with, you know, what would you like more of from us? How can we be even better? What can we do more of? And then we go and search out and find how we can improve those within ourselves. And I think one of the other things that we need to do to acquire the skills is to stay current as well. So not just to know what's going on within our business and what the need is from the different areas of the business there, but to stay current with what's going on outside, you know, what's in the news, what's the wider business picture that's out there, what's going on in LinkedIn. You know, people have been writing about TED Talks, they're brilliant. So we need to keep on learning, we need to keep on staying on top of and aware of what the current issues are that are going on. You know, I just saw this morning on LinkedIn that the new CFO for Heinz, for Kraft Heinz, is 29 years old. Wow, that's amazing. But for me, that piques my curiosity. And I think, okay, what does that mean for their business? And what does that mean for business in general? It means that we have to have more cross-generational conversations. So how am I doing that right now as an L&D professional? So how can I talk about that? You know, and I recently have been working with my own reverse mentor. I work with a woman who's in her 20s. She helps me to, you know, to see things from a different perspective. So I think we need to be living the things that we're talking about to help us acquire those skills and to keep them sharp as well.
Mm.
Emily, what brilliant suggestions in there. So many ideas. Thank you. And I like the fact that, you know, you're, I don't want to say taking your own medicine, it sounds bad, but, you know, you're following your own advice and having coaching and mentoring. I think that's something not a lot of people do, me included. I don't do it well enough, I know that. And in the chat window, there's been some ideas about what it is you do. Cath shared some ideas.
Yeah, I think that word curiosity really chimes with me. I think it's very easy, like in any
not being
sort of
by challenges, tackling
any element of business that
Neil,
we get trapped in our own worlds and we become trainers and
L&D
not learners, and we stop having conversations.
And also, you know,
and I think challenging yourself and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is really important. And I think we talked about being human earlier, and I think empathy is a good word here. So knowing what it's like to be not, you know, running a training course or a webinar, actually being a learner and how that feels. And it doesn't matter what the subject is, really. It's that sense of being a learner rather than being in the trainer's position. It's something that we did fairly recently. One of our clients is the British Library, who we've helped create their tone of voice, and we run regular writing workshops, particularly with their marketing teams. But that relationship came about because our business is about 7 years old now, and at about 4 or 5 we decided we needed to get some mentoring help with our business to grow, and the British Library have a scheme called Innovating for Growth. So you apply, and we got a place on that, and it was fantastically helpful for us to go on this, and we learnt from lots of different types of experts, even in our area like marketing and branding. You know, it's very difficult to be objective about your own business, and so they helped us with that. They helped us with all kinds of things. We met really fantastically inspiring and interesting people on this Innovating for Growth kind of program, and that involved lots of learning for us, lots of workshops, and lots of uncomfortable truths. And I think that's where you really, you know, you really grow, because because you're forced to maybe get out of your comfort zone, and you're not the expert, and actually maybe you realise that you could be doing things better. So that's one example. And in our development at the First Word, we're obviously all about writing and language and great training and and everything else, but also we encourage each other to develop skills outside of those areas, because as you can imagine, we've got similar backgrounds, teaching, journalism, copywriting, so we encourage all of us to do development outside of those areas, and I think that's really inspiring, because that's where you, for me, you get fresh ideas from, and you challenge yourself rather than just getting stuck in your own kind of world and your own habits. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think if you don't go and have those different experiences, you can't reflect upon your own, you can't compare them. Emily says, we believe that if we're not willing to be in discomfort, we're not learning, which is a great point. And my other half, my boyfriend, is a party DJ at the weekend, so he's not scratching records or anything by any means. But he goes and plays at your weddings and your birthday parties. And I went with him to a couple of those, and all the kit set up, and the computer got the headset on, and I was just like, I'm really enjoying this. This is great fun. I can do this. This is easy. But then, it's just like, actually, I don't know what all this equipment does. I don't know what to do if it goes wrong. And if it's not my musical genre, if it's not 70s rock, I don't know. I can't do anything. But, it just allowed that bit of reflection and thought about how I approach things in my own work as well. Now, in the chat window, Mark has made a really good comment, a really good question. And he says, when we talk about business impact, what impact do you want? Is it best in industry? Is it largest in industry? Is it being a specialist? And part of measuring your success is to define it. We haven't really talked a lot about the analysis, the measuring of success and stuff like that too much.
I completely agree with what Mark's question and the point that it's driving to. And almost brings us full circle to the points that I was bringing up at the very beginning. The world of learning and development has been quite a difficult one over the last few years. Fewer and fewer clients have had money to spend within the L&D space. The reality is that during a recession, people stop spending on L&D even though they know they should, because it's the area of almost, it's like sweets. You buy it at the end of your shopping round. You look after your people at the end of the shopping round, even you know in your heart that your people are the things that make your business. So L&D has been in a difficult position for the last few years. I think that is changing. I hope that it doesn't get bashed too much by the whole Brexit position, but obviously that's a challenge for us. Business impact is, for me, twofold. First of all, Mark is really referencing having a vision for your business. Do you want that business to, as he rightly says in his question, be the best in the industry, the largest? What does best mean? Are you, what is best? Is best that you're the most innovative, that you're making the most business change in your business? What does that term actually mean? But defining out your vision, and that is probably by having a conversation by the people that you think are your clients, so your target, going and having that conversation, which brings in everything that Emily's been saying and everything that Neil's been saying, having that conversation with your clients about what they see as best becomes part of your vision. Once you've written a vision, that's cracking, great start, and a business plan always is helpful with a vision, because the business plan takes us from where we are now to where we want to be, i.e. the vision. And that strategy piece, that business plan, must include looking after yourself, continuous professional development for your staff, the emotional intelligence, emotional well-being of your staff, because it's a tricky area. Upbeat and positive constantly is really tiring. However great we are in the classroom, however great we are on webinars, it is exhausting. So making sure that your staff have some time to look after their emotional strength is a really important part of where you're coming from in learning and development. But all of it comes back down to Mark's original question. What is it you're driving for? And then what's your plan to get there? And to link back to your last question, which is where do you get this information from? Yes, you can get it from reading. I mean, I'm an avid reader of Training Journal. It's the first thing I pick up when it comes through the post. I'm so glad it still comes through the post. Exactly. My magazine is the type of thing that I will pop in my handbag and take on my train. I so don't want you to put it online. I would like to continue to, I know it is online, I'd like it to be continually as a magazine. So that's a great venue for getting new ideas, picking up new passions, picking up new things, and everything that Emily was saying about learning what's new in the market. All of that's important. Attending conferences, making sure that your CPD is there. I also think there's some real merit in attending formalised training. I've attended training courses with as diverse people as the tax office, which is free. It's the part of my business that I could quite happily hang myself about, but you do need to know the figures. You do need to know where you're going to make the money, where the numbers are, and to, if we were on Dragon's Den, then thankfully they would be shooting us if we didn't know those figures. So it's all of that part. But I think that we're all really in agreement on that. It's the strategy, the vision, it's the business plan that backs it up, training courses, but it's also all of this informal learning that we can pick up in so many different places.
Oh gosh, so again, some really great responses and ideas there. And in the chat window, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What have you done yourself that you have found really useful? And I think that idea, Cath, of mixing up, as we say to our clients, the formal training, the informal training, the CPD, the going and doing stuff is really important. And outside of TJ, I work part-time for TJ. I run my own business as well, as many of you know. And just things like, the numbers. I was staring at a spreadsheet last night and could I work it out? But it's about, as we've talked about, putting yourself into that discomfort and trying it and giving it a go and finding people that can support you. And you learn, it's when you then start talking about it to other people that I realise how much I've picked up on with that. So we're going to go into a reflection piece in just a few moments' time and just think, well, what is it that we've talked about today that's really resonating with us? What is it we are going to do after today's sessions? We're going there in a few minutes to start having.
Well, there's loads of great stuff in the chat there, and we've talked
Emily
about, and of
Neil,
course
let's
we've
just
talked
have
about
maybe a
we're in the world of
1-minute
L&D
summary
communication.
on what
and I
thought
think
so
coming
far,
back to that original question, what business skills does the savvy L&D professional need?
So let's go to Emily first, then.
For me, and listening to everybody else, it's all about communication, whether that's written, whether that's spoken, and it's about engaging with people and being willing. And I think maybe we haven't said this word, but we talked about challenge and we've talked about discomfort. I think that what we're saying is that it's critical for us to be bold and to be willing to engage with whoever and do it in a way which is bold, which takes into account what we learn, what we know is the need, but also what's wider and what's out there. So yeah, for me that's the bit which stands out, is to be human, to be bold, and to be willing.
I think that's absolutely brilliant, and many of you know a lot of what the work that I do is webinar based, it's virtual classroom, it's using a lot of digital technology, but it's all about the learning, the people, the human element.
I definitely agree with being bold, as Emily just said.
I
think
use a
that's
lovely,
well-designed
slide. You'll be glad
before
to know,
I set up
Neil,
the first word. I've been training for
technology
almost
plus
10 years in writing,
and
but being
really
bold has pushed
Neil,
us on
kind of
and got much better results. So
so
just to pick up on something Cath was talking about, measurement and data, we've actually got much more results by doing scary things. And so I suppose, what is my headline? It's something that Sharon said earlier about pushing herself into new kind of challenging situations, and I find that by sort of frightening ourselves and being in that kind of uncomfortable kind of part of our career is what really helps us. So I think that's what I've learned. I came on and I wanted to talk about the power of conversation, and we've definitely covered that. But what I've learned from this, or what's been really underlined for me, is this importance of scaring ourselves a little bit and being bold.
I think that's a really well said, Martin, about being bold, about going out there and trying different things, and all the things that we highlight to our attendees, our learners, our clients, and then being bold and doing that ourselves is really important. So what we're going to do now is move into some reflection and have a think about, well, what boldness are we going to do after this? So our speakers are still with us, don't worry, they're still here, but we are coming off of webcam for now. So let's have a visual wave goodbye, although our speakers will still be here in voice, but we can come off here so you can relax and slump down in your chairs now if you want to. And let's come into our reflection piece. Now what we're going to do is we are going to practice our text tool first. So let's practice that and then go into our question. So everybody, have a look on the left of your screen. What you should have on the left of your screen is an annotation tool. It will look like the picture on the right. Go and grab the T tool. I've highlighted it in pink there. And if you click somewhere on the screen, you can just put in your name, like I've done, and click away, and we should be able to see it. So if you go and give that a go, and if it's not working, no problem, you can just let us know in the chat window. It's not an issue at all. Cath, Shona, Marg, all working fine. Interesting how you've all started in the top left there. That's interesting. So go and click on that. Now, if it's not loading for you, be patient. It could just be that you've got a slow bit of bandwidth going on there. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. We can use the backup of the chat window. That's always our backup we can use. And I know it might be slow for some of you because I'm looking at my second computer that I've got logged in as a backup, and it's not showing on that one. It's being slow, but never mind. Okay, so well done. Most of you have got that working. And Sharon, you've got the same bandwidth issues. Don't worry, Sharon, because I will read out what's written so you won't miss out on it, and you can use the chat window instead if you prefer. So for those of you that have got the slide loaded, let's have a look at what is your main action point from today's session. Go and share that on that whiteboard, please, using that T-Text tool. If it's not loading for you, just use the chat window. And what's there, I will read out so you will be able to hear it. Do not worry. So have a think. What's your action point from today? Click that T-Text tool. Let's go and share an item. What are you thinking about doing? You know, bearing in mind we've talked about motivation, we've talked about being bold, and that will be different for each of you. So for me, it's being a bit more bold with my data analysis, and we haven't talked about that part of things quite so much. For some of you, it could be about communication. It could be something else. Tell us what you're thinking. So if that's not working for you on the whiteboard, you can just type it into the chat window. So we've got a few things shared there. Let's have a look. So we've got a nice rectangle there on screen, and somebody's put experiment, and that's probably exactly what they are doing. So it's absolutely lovely to see that, and you can interpret that in whatever way is right for you. That could be with slides, it could be with technology, it could be with communication. What else have we got? On the right, keep on coming more out of my comfort zone. Yeah, it's stretching it, and stretching it is really important so that we start doing lots of different things. Don't worry if your writing has overlapped somebody else's.
I'm looking at these and I'm feeling very excited.
On the toolbox,
yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about what's my action point from today's discussion. And I was, in my mind, I was reflecting on
now,
how
Emily,
can
you were talking there about taking risks and being bold. It must be lovely for you to see that on the whiteboard.
I'm thinking about tomorrow. Yeah, don't write boring slides. Thinking about tomorrow and working with a new client, helping them to launch their mentoring program, and how can I really challenge them to think about building those mentoring relationships through better conversations. So yeah, it's great to see it there, and I'll certainly be posing some challenges tomorrow and challenging myself as well to have real, honest conversations.
Thank you, Emily. I think that's really important, and I think it's also important to note for everybody that's here, you're here as an attendee today to the session, but actually, our speakers, they might be on webcam, but they are learning as much from you and thinking about this conversation as the other way around. They just happen to be the people on webcam, which is, definitely, I think, an important distinction.
I like this idea
as well.
Of not worrying
what
about
else have we got on the whiteboard? Somebody at the bottom right has said, stop worrying about tomorrow's
really hung up
meeting
on
and remember
business
my
needs
potential
and
customer
outcomes
is
and objectives and measurements, and those things are really, really important.
Neil, that must be speaking to your heart as well.
That, we're dealing with human beings here. So yeah, that's music to my ears. Great.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. And I agree. It's, we've got to focus on so many different areas. It's about where we place our attention, where we push ourselves, where we, expand our comfort zone, where we lean on other people's expertise and work with them, whether it's our own business or whether we're a freelancer or a consultant. As well as kind of in a larger business as well. So further up on the right hand side of the slide, tucked in on the edge there, somebody has said reflect and also focus on investing time on skills development and be patient. Sharon, thank you for that, for sharing that. If we do have to be patient, I was researching something yesterday, it's actually from my personal life rather than my work life, and I was thinking, right, that's it, I want to go and do this. And then I thought, you know what, this is a 2-year project. I've got to be patient. I can't do this next week or next month. So that's a really good point there, Sharon, about reflecting on what we can do, what we're good at, as well as investing time moving forwards. Let's look in the middle and the left of the slide. Somebody's put, don't write boring slides. That's definitely an important one. And get outside of the box, which somebody has cheekily put outside of the rectangle. I like that. That is good thinking, that is. And above that, define how to receive
it links
meaningful.
Exactly into what we've been talking about. First of all, this vision and then a strategy to get there. You've got lots of different types of client customers, learners, some who were already learners of yours, where the communication channel is very different, some who you would like to be targeting. Do you know who they are? Do you know what that sweet spot looks like? Do you know what your ideal client is? Because there's no point in using a communication method that doesn't work to that ideal client. So I think that I unfortunately do fall in the numbers. That is a big part of where we've had the business for the last few years, is making sure that we're doing things that we can measure, reflect the business needs of our clients, and make sure that we're delivering passionate training that hopefully isn't boring, that is outside the box, but that lives to their needs and drivers. I think that some of everything that's been put up on the board is absolutely fascinating. I'm really glad that people have used different experimental means of actually delivering the message. The fact that what this is about is experimentation. It's about doing things differently. It's about that passion, that drive, that tenacity, that enthusiasm. Because this is a tricky business that everybody thinks they can do and very few can do well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on about that. And when you see it done well, oh, it is such a joy, because we all put up with things that aren't absolutely perfect. So some other things that we have got on the whiteboard: love your job, be passionate. Well, I'm definitely after that. If you don't pick that up from me, then I'm definitely doing something wrong. And all of our speakers have really, really lived that today. So thank you to all of them. More conversation, less text. That's definitely an important one, whether it's writing, whether it's delivery, whether it's training, whether it's a webinar, whether, whatever it might be. And above that, oh, Emily, go ahead. You've got a quick comment on that, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on what you said there, Joe, about more conversation, less text. I just wanted to say I have 2 teenage daughters, and it's a real challenge with phones or any kind of screen between our faces. You know, we have to. My constant challenge with them is to get the phone away from the conversation. So I agree with you. Less text, whether it's literally texting on a phone or text anywhere else. The more we can remove those screens from in front of our faces, the better connection we're going to have, and the more business success we will have as L&D professionals, I believe.
Definitely agree on that. And Cath, I think you've got one more really quick comment before I wrap up today.
Everything Ellie's just said is so important. The key is understanding the target audience you're trying to communicate with. So if they are communicating through a means that is not necessarily the means I choose, then I've got to communicate to them in that manner. That's part of my strategy, part of my business drive.
Yeah, I always talk about kind of being where people are. It's a fine line between, shall I text my kids or shall I actually get them to put the phone down? A bit of both, and knowing which is appropriate is absolutely right. So thank you both for that. And the reflection on the whiteboard, moving towards the top of that, share the slides, communicate to my network about the type of skills, knowledge and attitude they need to run a business. Absolutely great. And the last one at the top, get a better understanding of the commercials of the business. That is so important. I need to know I know the priorities, but need to get more into the detail. This is from the comment, part of measuring your success and defining it. I like that, and sometimes we forget. And I think that's a great point to end on. Because, you know, all of these skills are business skills. All of these are what we need for our modern working practice. And I think that summarises it quite nicely. So thank you so very much to our speakers, Emily, Cath and Neil. They've done a fabulous job, so thank you to all of them. And really looking forward to your comments on Twitter and getting involved on those things as well. And our next session and all of our recordings, you know, they're on the Training Journal website. You know you can get involved on Twitter with our hashtag. And we've shared the handles for everybody there as well. We also have a forum you can come and join us on if you want to discuss any of this in a little bit more detail. We have a very vibrant, lovely forum, and you can come and have a chat there about any of these topics and post some questions. Our next webinar that you can join is actually, gosh, you know this is after my own heart, this one. Can you really actually facilitate in the virtual classroom? We've got Kirsty, Christina and Lorna with us, so you can come and join us on that one. It's going to be a really interesting conversation, and we've got different angles on that one, just like we have had today. So to Cath, Emily and Neil, thank you so much. Any last really quick words?
From me, this is Emily. I would just say thank you, Joe. Looking at the topic for the next webinar, if you're anything to go by, then I think the answer is yes. It's been great to have the conversation. Thank you everyone for all your comments. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. And Neil?
Yeah, thanks again, Joe. I really love this format. So again, I'd agree that the answer... Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Just a bit.
Hello? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I think just thanks everyone, and I love this format. It's so open and you can actually have a conversation, and I feel like much more training needs to be like this. So yeah, I'll definitely be coming on the next webinar as well. So thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Joe, I'm so glad you came to me last, because I was in the middle of signing on to the next webinar, because two of the individuals I know well and they're both brilliant, so I'll be there. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time, for your enthusiasm. Keep driving for what you want. Somebody put on that message board that the heart of the business is so important, absolutely, and you are all the hearts of your own business. So keep going. There are days that it's tough. I know that. Enjoy it. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, brilliant. What a lovely note to end on. So thank you to our speakers. Thank you also to all of you who've come along. It's you guys in the chat panel and on the whiteboard that really make it vital and interesting. So we hope to see you on our next one. We've got more lined up. They're all on our website. Go and have a look at that. We'll see you next time and have a great day. Thank you very much and goodbye.